Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're here inside today because it's actually kind of a blizzard out there and I don't want to film outside in a blizzard. If it calms down later today, maybe I'll go outside and take a video. But for right now, we're staying inside and we're going to talk about another chicken breed. I am a sucker for fluffy feet, so today's breed is one of my favorites. I like the Croad Langshan. Now, the Croad Langshan has these fantastic feet, except for the German version. They're clean-legged. But the rest of them have these fluffy feet that are just absolutely attractive. I love the fluffy feet. It's why we raise silkies. So, the Croad Langshan is on my list of birds I really adore. They originate in the Langshan region of China. A lot of birds are named after the region they came from. This one's no exception. And there are several types of Langshan around the world. I just mentioned the German one, but there's also one from the UK, one from the US, one from Australia. There's a Bantam version. There's a whole bunch. So we'll talk about them. I'm not going to talk about the specific differences because that would take forever, but I will mention each type. So in the UK, they're simply called the Croad Langshan because that's pretty much what people think of when they think of where the breed started. They're talking about the UK, even though it originates from China. So they were imported into the UK in the 1870s, and at the time there was some debate as to whether or not they were different from your black Cochins to be considered their own breed. But over time, UK breeders kind of refined the Croad Langshan, and they were definitely a distinct breed. They became really what you see today, and they look nothing like a Cochin now. They're very very different feathers, very different body structure. But back in the 1870s, they were different, but not enough. So it took a while for UK breeders to refine the breed. The Croad Langshan Club, the British Croad Langshan Club, was founded in 1904, but it closed down in 1968 because of a lack of interest. It was restarted basically in 1979. Now, the Croad Langshan is still kind of a rare breed in the UK. There's not a ton of interest in it, but they are there. So there's not no interest. They're just not among the most popular breeds in the UK. Then you come to the German Langshan. The German Langshan, as I mentioned, is clean-legged. So they are my least favorite type of Langshan. They were imported from the UK originally, but they were crossed with the Plymouth Rock and Minorca to give them that clean-legged appearance, because that's what the German breeders wanted. They wanted a Croad Langshan, but with clean feet. And they're a beautiful bird. They just don't have the fluffy feet I love, but they are beautiful, and they do still have the same temperament as the other Langshans. These were later re-imported into the UK. So in the UK, you often have those two versions of the Langshan competing as slightly different breeds because they are not identical anymore. There's still a lot in common. They look a lot alike, but they are distinct breeds at this point, even though they're shown in the same. Sometimes they're shown in the same breed, but they are very different. One is clean-legged, one is not. So in the US, they're just called Langshans. They don't usually call them Croad Langshans, though sometimes, like I'm in Canada, so here we have some people call them Croad Langshans, some people just call them Langshans. It kind of depends on where you are. They are the same breed in the United States and Canada. They just call them something different sometimes. So they were originally imported from the UK into the US, and there was very little drama in regards to the Langshan in the US and Canada. They were imported, the standard was created, they were refined a little bit. There are minor differences between the Langshan in the US and the Croad Langshan in the UK, but not enough to write home about. So, relatively drama-free in North America. They were just brought over, ta-da, there's your breed, and moved on. You also have the Australian version. The Australian Langshan is kind of interesting because, like a lot of Australian breeds, in order to strengthen the breed and kind of refine it into what they wanted in Australia, it was bred back to the Orpington. That happens a lot in Australia. They use the Orpington as kind of a base. So these have been the standard in Australia since 1998, and in Australia, these guys are really popular. So really, their popularity varies depending on where you go. There's also a Bantam Croad Langshan. These guys were created in the 1950s. They were likely bred from Langshans crossed back to Bantam Cochins because of the fluffy feet and all that nonsense. Today they are a distinct breed on their own. They were just bred back to a smaller breed to get that smaller size. Sometimes the Bantams don't lay the right color eggs. Speaking of eggs, these guys are decent layers. They lay about 180 to 240 pink brown eggs, the kind of purpley eggs, actually. So they're really unique eggs. The Bantams sometimes don't lay the correct color and they'll lay less. Everyone else lays fantastic. They're not leghorns, it's true, but Langshans, they lay well. They are also dual purpose breeds, except for the Bantam. The Bantam does not make a good meat bird, but the standard size Langshans do make a good meat bird if you are looking for a dual purpose breed. This guy might be up your alley. There are both black and white varieties, the black being more common. Some areas the white is non existent, but there are white Langshans out there if you're looking for them. These birds are beautiful. They are compact, they're profusely feathered. When you view them from the side, you kind of have this U shape going on. They're actually really attractive birds. And the fluffy feet, all of it. They are a calm bird, making them good pets, and they're easy keeper, meaning they're pretty good for a newer chicken keeper. Though these birds can get a little bit expensive depending on where you are because they're not super common. So if you are getting into chickens, you might not want to spend the money on Langshans, but they are a good starter breed. They also don't wander very far, so they're good if you're free ranging because they tend not to take off. They tend to stay pretty close to home, so they'll free range, but around their coop. So easy keepers, good for both the experienced and the newer chicken keepers. They're also really attractive. So these birds are easy, they're fun, and frankly, I like having them wander around the barnyard. I don't have one right now. I am going to get some because we're expanding our farm again, and I'm probably going to have all the chickens. But that's about it for us here at Andersen Acres today. Hope you enjoyed talking about the Croad Langshan. We'll see you tomorrow.